I used to think my grandma Aurora was an open book, her life a gentle, shining river I could always dip into whenever I wanted comfort or wisdom. Her blue eyes, like a summer sky just before dusk, held stories I believed I knew, stories of laughter, of quiet strength, of a woman who had seen much and endured with a smile. To me, she was a sanctuary of warmth, a safe harbor in the whirlwind of my youth. I remember how her voice, soft and soothing, would cradle me when I was uncertain, how her hands, delicate but steady, would brush my hair, whispering reassurance that everything would be all right. She had a way of making me feel seen, loved, and cherished, as if her very presence was a gentle embrace that would never let go. But there was one thing I never quite understood, one mystery that lingered in the quiet corners of my mind, the faintest hint of secrets she never shared. I believed I knew her whole story, or at least most of it. Yet, after she passed away, something changed. When the house fell silent and the last of her belongings were being sorted through, I found myself drawn to the attic, a place I'd always been told was off-limits to me, filled with old boxes, dusty furniture, and memories long tucked away. It was there, amid the scent of aged wood and forgotten years, that I discovered something unexpected, a small, worn wooden box, tucked inside a cardboard chest buried beneath a pile of faded quilts. My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid, revealing a collection of papers bound with a leather strap, the edges frayed and delicate, like they had been handled with reverence and care. The scent of aged paper and faint traces of lavender, her favorite perfume, wafted up as I gently touched the pages. There was a heaviness in my chest, a mixture of curiosity and reverence, as I realized I was holding something far more precious than I had ever imagined. Inside, I found a diary, its cover cracked and faded, the leather soft and pliable beneath my fingertips, and the ink inside faded, but still legible, revealing words penned with a trembling hand, stories that had somehow been hidden from all of us. As I sat there amidst the quiet attic, my heart pounding softly in my ears, I felt a sudden rush of awe and emotion. This was her secret world, her private voice, her unspoken truths. I never imagined that behind her gentle smile lay tales of love forbidden, sacrifices made in silence, and a life that had been more complex and daring than I had ever known. With trembling hands, I opened the pages, and as I read her words, a flood of memories, questions, and wonder washed over me. It was as if I had uncovered a piece of her soul, something deeply human and profoundly brave, hidden away in the shadows of her quiet life. And now, as I trace her words with my eyes, I realize that this story is only just beginning. There are secrets in those pages that will shake the foundations of everything I thought I knew about her, stories of a forbidden love that defied the world, sacrifices made during times of war and turmoil, and a legacy that reaches across generations, whispering through the corridors of time. I can feel the weight of her history pressing softly against my heart, calling me to listen, to understand, and to carry her story forward. If you're willing to walk this path with me, to listen to the whispers of a life once hidden and to discover the strength in quiet sacrifices, I invite you to stay close. There are truths waiting to be uncovered, lessons to be learned, and a love that endures beyond the boundaries of time. And in the end, I believe, her story will remind us all that even the most fragile-seeming hearts can hold the deepest reservoirs of courage and hope. The quiet town of Willow Creek seemed to hold its breath under the gentle warmth of a late summer sun. The small houses, with their weathered wooden facades and blooming gardens, sat peacefully along winding dirt roads that stretched lazily into the distance. Here, life moved at a slower pace, wrapped in a timeless rhythm of sunrises and sunsets, of chores and quiet moments that stitched the days together with an unspoken sense of belonging. The air was thick with the scent of fresh hay, ripe apples, and the faint, comforting aroma of bread baking in the morning. It was a place where stories were whispered on the breeze, and generations of families had rooted themselves into the earth, their roots tangled with hope and tradition. In the heart of this tranquil world, young Aurora grew up surrounded by the soft hum of nature and the tender voices of her family. She was a girl of delicate wonder, her eyes reflecting the endless sky above and her mind forever wandering beyond the fields and forests that stretched beyond her doorstep. She possessed a quiet curiosity, a gentle yearning to see what lay beyond the familiar hills and distant horizons. Her imagination often carried her away during long afternoons, especially when she sat beneath the grand oak tree in their yard, its sturdy branches spreading out like open arms welcoming her into worlds only she could see. With her fingers tracing patterns in the soft earth or leafing through her worn books, she felt a spark of something that she couldn't quite name, an ache for something more than the simple, steady days of her childhood. Aurora's family was woven tightly into the fabric of Willow Creek. Her father, a rugged man with hands calloused from years of tending to the farm, had a steady voice that grounded her even during her most restless moments. Her mother, gentle and kind, moved through their home like a whisper of springtime, tending to the garden and filling their days with warm meals and stories from her own childhood. Her older brother Thomas was a dreamer too, always tinkering with models of airplanes and reading about distant lands that seemed almost as far away as the stars. His eyes sparkled with ambition, and Aurora often watched him with admiration, secretly wishing she could soar beyond the sky as he dreamed of doing. Lily, her youngest sister, was a poetic soul, her voice soft and musical as she recited verses she'd memorized from her favorite books. She often sat beside Aurora, their shoulders touching, sharing secrets whispered under their breath as they watched the clouds drift lazily across the sky. Their small family was a sanctuary, each member a piece of a familiar puzzle, their lives simple but deeply intertwined, rooted in shared laughter, quiet support, and a love that needed no words to be understood. Days in Willow Creek followed a gentle, predictable pattern. Mornings were filled with the sounds of rooster calls and the clatter of dishes, while Aurora helped her mother in the kitchen or wandered the fields, picking wildflowers or chasing after butterflies that danced just out of reach. Evenings brought a sense of calm as the family gathered around the dinner table, sharing stories of their day amid the clatter of dishes and the warm glow of oil lamps. Aurora loved these moments best when her world felt safe and complete, wrapped in the comforting familiarity of her family's love. Yet, amid this serenity, a quiet restlessness simmered within her. Sometimes, when she gazed out at the distant horizon or listened to the wind whisper through the trees, she felt a faint tug in her chest, a whisper of longing for something unseen, a call from beyond the fields and forests, beckoning her to discover what lay somewhere beyond the familiar. She knew, without understanding exactly how she knew, that her life was only a small part of a much larger story. And perhaps someday, she would find her place within it. As the seasons changed and the years softly turned, Aurora's inner world grew richer, colored by her dreams and the gentle ache of curiosity. She loved her home with all her heart, but she also felt a tender pull toward the unknown, like a faint melody that lingered in her mind long after the music had stopped. Sometimes, she would sit quietly at the window, watching the stars emerge one by one, each flickering light stirring a flicker of hope that one day, she might explore distant places, soar above the clouds, or simply find her own story waiting to be written. And so, in this peaceful, unhurried world, Aurora's spirit quietly stirred, caught between the comfort of her roots and the silent promise of adventures yet to come. The gentle rhythm of Willow Creek was her sanctuary, a place where dreams could bloom softly, even if they were hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise. Little did she know, the winds of change would one day sweep through her life, carrying with them secrets and stories that would reshape her understanding of home, love, and the courage it takes to truly find oneself. The gentle hum of life in Willow Creek had carried on peacefully, the days flowing softly like the wind through the tall pines. Aurora often found herself sitting by the window, her thoughts drifting toward distant places she had only glimpsed in her dreams. The world beyond the hills still seemed far away, wrapped in the quiet comfort of familiar faces and the simple rhythm of farm chores, market days, and family laughter. But even in that serenity, a faint whisper of change was beginning to stir. It started subtly, an old radio crackling at dawn, bringing distant voices that spoke in hurried, hushed tones. Sometimes, during the market, neighbors would lean in closer, exchanging hurried whispers about countries at war, about ships lost at sea, and soldiers marching far from home. Aurora listened, her youthful curiosity ignited by the strange, foreign words, sensing that something vast and unseen was creeping into her world. It felt like the air itself had taken on a different scent, less familiar, tinged with a weight she couldn't quite name. Her parents, Thomas and Maria, responded with a mixture of quiet concern and cautious hope. Thomas, always the adventurous spirit, saw opportunity in the upheaval. This could bring new trade, new stories, he would say, trying to keep their worries at bay. Maria, however, fretted quietly, her hands trembling as she stitched quilts and listened to the news. She worried about her children, about Aurora's future, about Elias, and about what dangers might lie ahead. Her heart ached with the unspoken fear that their peaceful life might soon be disrupted in ways they could never fully understand. Aurora felt the change deep within her, a restless stirring that grew stronger each day. She was no longer content to dream only of distant lands and adventures, her mind now tangled with questions about justice, safety, and what it truly meant to stand for what was right. The innocence of her childhood was slipping away, replaced by a strange awareness that the world was shifting beneath her feet. Sometimes, late at night, she would stare at the stars, imagining the vast, tumultuous universe beyond her small town, wondering how much longer her world could remain untouched by the chaos she sensed approaching. Then came the day that seemed to mark a turning point. A stranger appeared in Willow Creek, riding into town on a sturdy horse, his uniform crisp and shining in the sunlight. His face was etched with a seriousness that made Aurora's heart quicken. She saw him from her window, watching as he dismounted with a quiet dignity, his posture straight and commanding, yet somehow guarded. There was an air about him, something both distant and familiar, that made her feel as if he carried stories she would never fully understand. His name was Elias, and he was unlike any young man Aurora had ever seen. There was a calm strength in his eyes, a depth that hinted at secrets kept close to his heart. His voice was measured, careful, as he spoke little but observed much. When he looked at Aurora, it was with a quiet intensity that made her cheeks flush and her curiosity ignite. She felt an inexplicable pull toward him, a sense that he was somehow connected to the larger, more complicated world she was only beginning to glimpse. Elias's arrival was understated but electric, like a sudden gust of wind that stirs the leaves. His presence seemed to cast a shadow of mystery over the town, and Aurora sensed that his story was intertwined with the shifting tides of history. She saw in his eyes a flicker of something darker, perhaps a burden, perhaps a purpose. Whatever secrets Elias carried, they were not meant for light conversation. Yet, in their brief exchanges, glances exchanged across the dusty streets, there was an undeniable electricity, an unspoken promise that her quiet world was about to change. As the days passed, Aurora found herself drawn to him, her thoughts flickering with questions she dared not voice. Who was he? Why had he come to Willow Creek? And what stories did his silence hold? She sensed that Elias's presence was not merely happenstance, but a sign that the world's great upheaval was reaching even this far-flung corner of the earth. The distant rumblings of war felt closer now, as if a storm was gathering on the horizon, ready to break the calm of her childhood and reshape everything she knew. In the quiet moments of reflection, Aurora's heart fluttered with a strange mixture of excitement and fear. She had always dreamed of adventure, of a life beyond these familiar hills. But now, as the shadows lengthened and the world grew more uncertain, she wondered if her dreams could survive the weight of real danger. The innocence she cherished was slipping away, replaced by a sense of responsibility, an awareness that her choices, her courage, might someday influence not only her own fate but that of those she loved. And so, amid whispers of war and the silent promise of change, Aurora watched Elias closely, sensing that her life was about to intersect with a story much larger than her own. A story of love and sacrifice, of secrets and courage, unfolding in a time when the world itself was teetering on the brink of transformation. The quiet town of Willow Creek, once a sanctuary of peace, was now a stage for the unfolding drama of history, and Aurora, with her heart full of longing and her mind awakening to new truths, was about to step into it all. The dawn broke softly over Willow Creek, casting a gentle glow through the lace curtains of Aurora's small home. She had heard the words that morning, the harsh, dismissive tone of the doctor, the cold statement that echoed in her mind like a distant thunder. "You're too fragile to work anymore," they had said, as if her spirit could be weighed and measured by the fragile shell of her body. But Aurora, even in that moment of quiet despair, knew better. That morning, she made a choice, one born from a flicker of defiant hope that refused to be snuffed out. With trembling hands, she opened her own small business, a humble shop filled with hand-stitched linens and fragrant herbs, a place where she could carve out her independence and prove that her strength was something no illness or judgment could take from her. The days that followed grew quieter, yet beneath the surface, something restless stirred. Rumors of war had begun to ripple through the town like an unwelcome wind, stirring fears that felt both distant and painfully personal. Aurora watched her neighbors' faces tighten with worry, saw the way their eyes flickered to the horizon when the wind shifted. But amidst this growing darkness, she found a secret refuge in the quiet companionship of Elias. Their meetings were rare, stolen moments beneath the old oak in the woods or in the shadowed corner of her shop. There, in those stolen breaths, they shared more than words. They shared hopes and fears, tenderness and a fragile belief that love might somehow outshine the shadows gathering around them. Elias's presence was a mystery that deepened with each passing day. His dark eyes held a quiet intensity, and his voice, when he spoke of his past, carried the weight of secrets he dared not reveal to anyone else. One evening, beneath the dim glow of a flickering lantern, Elias finally confided in Aurora. He was a scientist, a man who had once believed in progress and discovery, but had become a deserter from the chaos of war. His mission was urgent, to find and secure a device of immense power, an ancient encryption artifact hidden long ago by a master clockmaker in Willow Creek, meant to safeguard secrets that could turn the tide of history. Elias's voice trembled as he explained that Nazi agents, disguised as ordinary townsfolk, were already hunting for the artifact, seeking to harness its power for destruction. The realization struck Aurora with a cold clarity. Her peaceful world was no longer safe, nor was her heart. The danger crept ever closer, cloaked in the guise of friendly faces and quiet whispers. She noticed the subtle signs: an unfamiliar car parked near the church, strangers lingering in shadows, watchful eyes that seemed to follow her every move. The sense of being watched grew insistent, a silent threat that made her skin prickle with unease. The town, once so familiar, was transforming into a labyrinth of suspicion and peril. Together, Elias and Aurora deciphered clues left behind by the late clockmaker, clues hidden in the intricate gears and tiny secret compartments of an old grandfather clock. Their search led them deep beneath the church, into a labyrinth of tunnels carved centuries ago, winding through stone and shadow. In that dark, silent underground world, Aurora felt a stirring of courage she hadn't known she possessed. It was a dangerous game, yet each step she took was fueled by the hope of protecting Elias, of safeguarding the fragile future they dared to believe in. Her hands trembled as she helped Elias unlock the final secret, her heart pounding in her chest with a mixture of fear and fierce determination. As the truth of Elias's mission unfolded, Aurora's transformation became undeniable. No longer merely an observer of her fate, she stepped into the shadows alongside him, her resolve hardening like steel. Her moral compass, once guided by quiet patience, now pointed toward action, toward risking everything to keep the artifact out of enemy hands. Every heartbeat felt like a promise to herself that she would stand for love, for truth, and for the safety of her community. Her internal struggle was fierce, to protect her family from the fallout of discovery, or to embrace the dangerous path that might save countless lives. The line blurred, and she knew that her choices now would forever change her understanding of strength and sacrifice. Throughout it all, her secret confidant remained her diary, her silent witness, her trusted friend. In the pages of those worn leather covers, Aurora poured out her fears, her devotion to Elias, and the shifting landscape of her identity. Her words fluttered between hope and despair, between the desire for a peaceful life and the urgent call to fight for something greater. That diary, her hidden testament, became her anchor, a quiet reminder that, even in the darkest moments, her spirit endured. And as the danger grew, so did her resolve. The love she found in Elias was no fleeting spark, but a beacon illuminating her path through the shadows. It was a tenderness that softened her fears, a hope that rekindled her courage. In the quiet of the night, she whispered her promises to herself and to Elias, promises of loyalty, of bravery, and of a future worth fighting for. She knew the world outside was unraveling. Her own life, intertwined with secrets and peril, now demanded her active participation. Yet, in her heart, she clung to the belief that love, born in the quiet corners of Willow Creek, could be the greatest act of resistance against the darkness threatening to consume everything she held dear. The air in the hidden chamber was thick with silence, except for the faint echo of their footsteps on the cold stone floor. Shadows clung to the ancient walls, whispering secrets of a time-long past, and the scent of dust and oil filled the space, heavy and lingering. Aurora's heart pounded fiercely in her chest, each beat a reminder that her life was now forever changed. Elias had led her here, through twisting passages and mechanical traps designed by his mentor, the brilliant clockmaker, whose ingenuity had woven complex locks and riddles into the very fabric of this underground sanctuary. She remembered the moment they found the door, a heavy, iron contraption etched with symbols and gears that seemed to breathe with life. Elias had worked tirelessly, his fingers deft and sure, deciphering the code embedded in the ancient mechanism. With a final turn of a rusted wheel, the door creaked open, revealing a chamber bathed in faint, flickering light from an oil lamp Elias carried. Inside, resting on a pedestal carved from stone, was the artifact, a shimmering object pulsing with an otherworldly glow, a relic of immense power and mystery. But their success was fleeting. No sooner had they glimpsed the prize than the air shifted. The faint sounds of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, grew louder, echoing through the labyrinth. Aurora's stomach clenched as she saw shadows emerge from the darkness, Nazi agents, disguised as locals perhaps, or simply hunters of this secret, aware of their pursuit and closing in fast. The sense of dread was suffocating, pressing against her ribs, making each breath shallow and sharp. The labyrinth was collapsing into chaos. Panic surged through her veins, but instinct kept her grounded. Elias grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a narrow corridor, his eyes blazing with desperation and determination. "Run," he rasped, voice strained but commanding. "Get out with the artifact. Promise me." Her mind was a whirlwind, fear, love, guilt, all tangled into one. She nodded, voice catching in her throat, but her resolve hardened. She had to survive, for him, for everything they believed in. They darted through the winding tunnels, metal scraping stone, footsteps pounding behind them. The labyrinth seemed alive, shifting, trapping them in a maze of shadows. Elias's hand was steady as he guided her, his mind racing to remember the weak points in the ancient design, any trap or lock they might still face. Suddenly, a trap triggered, a burst of steam, and a series of blades slicing through the air. Aurora's heart leapt into her throat as she instinctively ducked, her mind racing to recall the lessons Elias had shared. Her memory was a fragile thread, but it became her anchor, guiding her through the chaos. Yet, amid the turmoil, Elias faltered. A shot rang out, echoing like thunder, and he staggered, clutching his side. Pain etched across his face, but he refused to fall. "Keep going," he gasped, voice strained. "You're the only one who can finish this." As the agents closed in, He pulled her close, his eyes tender and fierce. From his pocket, he produced a small, wrapped package, the artifact's protective case, and pressed it into her trembling hands. His voice was a whisper, a farewell slipping from his lips amid the noise. "Take it. Protect it. Live for what we fought for." Before she could protest, Elias pushed her away, facing the enemy with a bravery that pierced her soul. She saw his figure stiffen as the agents advanced, and in that moment, she realized the depth of his sacrifice, his love for her, for the world, and for the hope they carried inside. Tears blurred her vision as she watched him stand firm, a hero until the very end. Her body moved on instinct, driven by grief and a fierce, unyielding resolve. She ran, heart shattered but mind clear, clutching the artifact close. Every step was a knife in her chest, the weight of loss pressing down on her shoulders. She could still hear Elias's voice, his final plea, echoing in her mind. She had to escape, she had to carry his sacrifice forward. Emerging into the cold, fresh air of the night, Aurora's lungs filled with a mixture of relief and despair. The city stretched before her silent, unaware of the battle that had just transpired beneath its streets. She clutched the artifact tightly, her hands trembling, her body trembling, but her spirit ignited with a new purpose. Elias's love, his courage, had ignited a fire in her that no darkness could extinguish. She paused for a moment, tears streaming down her face, her heart aching with the weight of her loss. Her mind raced back to her secret diary, the place where she had poured her fears, hopes, and love for Elias. Now, more than ever, she understood that this journal was her tether, a fragile thread connecting her past to her future, anchoring her in grief, but also in the promise of what she must do. In the quiet aftermath, she opened the leather cover and began to write. Her words spilled forth raw, trembling, filled with sorrow and resolve. She wrote of Elias's sacrifice, of the love that had sustained them, and of the terrible burden now hers to bear. Every line was a testament to his bravery, a reminder that her life was no longer her own. She was the guardian of his memory, the keeper of the artifact's secret, and the bearer of a legacy forged in love and sacrifice. As dawn approached, Aurora felt the first stirrings of something fierce and unbreakable awakening within her. The grief was still a heavy weight, but beneath it a quiet, unwavering resolve took root. She would carry Elias's torch, protect the world from the darkness they faced, and honor his sacrifice by becoming the woman he believed she could be. Her journey had only just begun, and though her heart was shattered, her purpose was clear: to live with love, to fight with courage, and to ensure that Elias's sacrifice was never in vain. The darkness of the night pressed heavily against the windows, but it was nothing compared to the weight inside her chest. She had run, stumbled, and scraped her way through the shadows of that labyrinth, Elias's voice echoing in her mind, urging her to go, to survive. Her breath came ragged, her shoes scraping against cold stone, every step a desperate attempt to leave behind the chaos, the danger, the impossible truth. When she finally burst through the narrow exit into the cool, unfeeling air outside, her body trembled with exhaustion, and her mind was a jumble of fear and relief. She collapsed onto her knees on the damp ground, clutching the artifact close, as if it could somehow anchor her to the only thing that mattered now: Elias's sacrifice. Her body ached, bruised and battered, but it was the silence inside her that felt the most deafening. Elias was gone, and with him, the flicker of hope that had sometimes shone through her darkest days. Now, only silence. The house waited behind her, dark and quiet, as if nothing had changed. She knew her face was streaked with dirt and tears, but she avoided the mirror, afraid of what she might see: her own reflection, hollow and unfamiliar, a ghost of the woman who once believed in something brighter. The world had shifted beneath her feet, but she had no choice but to carry on, to hide her grief behind a fragile mask. Inside, she moved silently, her footsteps tentative, as if walking on shattered glass. The house was still, but her mind was anything but. Every breath was a reminder of what she had lost, every heartbeat a thudding echo of Elias's sacrifice. She clutched the diary she kept, her only sanctuary now, her trembling hands flipping open to the last pages she had written before the chaos. Her words were raw, jagged lines filled with pain and confusion. Not poetry, not clarity, just broken fragments spilled onto the pages. She poured out her grief, her rage, her helplessness, knowing no one else would see it but herself. The ink blurred as tears fell, blurring the words into meaningless scribbles, yet somehow they made her feel less alone. She kept her secret carefully, hiding the truth of Elias's death from her family, from the world. They believed he had fallen in a tragic accident, a cruel twist of fate. No one had to know what really happened, that Elias had faced monsters in the dark, that he had sacrificed himself to save her and the artifact. She watched their faces, saw the sorrow they expressed, but beneath it, she knew they could never understand the depth of her pain, the fury that burned beneath her skin, the ache of knowing she was left behind. Their tears were genuine, but they were only surface. She felt like an outsider, a ghost haunting her own life. Every day, she carried the weight of that secret, the heavy object hidden in the back of a closet, wrapped in cloth, as if shielding it could somehow protect her from the truth. But it was a burden she felt pressing against her ribs, a silent reminder of Elias's courage and her own helplessness. As she moved through her days, shadows seemed to cling to her, flickering in the corners of her vision, whispering doubts and fears. Yet, amid the darkness, something whispered back, a faint flicker, small but persistent, of resolve. One night, sitting alone in the dim glow of a candle, she found Elias's journal, buried beneath a pile of papers and old maps. The pages were filled with notes, sketches, coded symbols, evidence of his obsession, his hope, his fears. Her trembling fingers traced the lines, searching for something, anything, that might give her a reason to keep going. And then she found it, a fragment of a message, a word, a clue embedded in his scribbles that seemed to call to her, a spark amid the wreckage. It was not a cry for revenge, she realized, but a quiet, stubborn desire to understand, to protect what Elias had fought for. She began to look at her world differently, sharper, more cautious. Shadows stretched longer in the corners of her vision. She noticed things she never paid attention to before, an unfamiliar face in the street, a strange sound in the night, the subtle shift of trust that felt fragile now. The artifact felt heavier than ever, a secret she was not yet ready to reveal, but one that demanded her attention. She knew she couldn't ignore it, not anymore. It was a part of Elias now, and somehow, it had become part of her. In the quiet hours, she started to study Elias's notes. She visited dusty shelves in the local library, rummaging through old books and maps, her eyes searching for answers. Her mind was clouded with grief, but under the surface, a small ember of purpose flickered. It was fragile, trembling, but it was enough to keep her moving. Every page she turned, every faded map she studied, was a step away from the darkness that had enveloped her. She was not yet strong, but she was beginning to forge something new, a glimmer of hope born from despair. The grief was still there, a constant ache in her chest, but beneath it, a different feeling was stirring, a quiet determination. It was not loud, not dramatic, but real. She understood that life would never be the same, that her world had cracked open with Elias's sacrifice. Yet, within that fracture, something was forming, an unspoken promise to herself. She would hold on, quietly, fiercely, to the memories that kept Elias alive in her heart. She would learn, she would remember, and she would protect. Not with grand gestures or loud declarations, but with the steady, unyielding resolve of someone who has faced the deepest darkness and refused to be consumed. In the end, her grief remained, a shadow that would never fully lift. But she also knew that somewhere within it, a new strength was quietly taking root. It was fragile, uncertain, but it was enough. Enough to keep her moving forward, to face whatever came next. Because sometimes, The smallest spark can illuminate the dark, and that spark had been lit the moment she ran from the labyrinth, clutching Elias's memory close. And she would carry it, this fragile, fierce hope, until she found a way to turn it into something unbreakable. The morning dawned colder than I had expected, my body still heavy with the weight of yesterday's exhaustion, yet something within me had shifted. A quiet resolve blossomed amidst the lingering ache. When the nurse gently told me I was too fragile to work anymore, I knew she saw only my outward trembling, the tears I tried to hide. But I looked at her, not with despair, but with an ember of quiet defiance. That very night, I made a decision I had long been contemplating, but never dared to voice aloud. I would leave Willow Creek behind. I would carve out a new life, one where my footsteps could be hidden, where no one would look for me, where I could finally breathe and, perhaps, find the strength to understand what Elias had left behind. In the days that followed, I packed what little I could carry: clothes, a few precious possessions, Elias's diary, the only link I had to the man who had given everything for this secret. The city was a stark contrast to the quiet familiarity of my hometown, with its endless hum, bustling streets, and faceless crowds. It was unfamiliar, almost hostile in its anonymity, but I clung to the hope that here I could be unseen, untraceable. I rented a modest room on the edge of a quiet neighborhood where the shadows stretched long in the evenings and the sounds of footsteps echoed softly in the corridors. It was a far cry from the open fields and familiar woods of Willow Creek, but it was mine now, a sanctuary where I could begin to gather the pieces of what Elias had left me. From the moment I arrived, I threw myself into the depths of study, driven by a hunger I hadn't realized I possessed. Elias's diary was my compass, filled with coded notes, cryptic symbols, and references to the artifact's true nature. I pored over every word, every diagram, deciphering the language of someone who had believed in the importance of this knowledge even when the world had turned dark around him. I found old books in city archives, tucked away behind layers of dust and neglect, that spoke in riddles about encryption, intelligence, and hidden power. Whispered conversations in dimly lit corners of libraries, discreet consultations with scholars who specialized in cryptography and espionage. These became my new lessons, my silent teachers. I learned to read subtle signs, to observe with a careful eye, to hear what was left unsaid. I practiced blending into the background, slipping past surveillance with a quiet, practiced ease. I watched strangers in crowded cafes, noting the way their eyes betrayed their nerves, the slight gestures that revealed more than words ever could. I began to understand how to listen without being heard, how to move unnoticed in a space filled with noise. Every small success, every decoded message fueled my confidence. Though my heart still ached for Elias's voice, for his steady presence, I found that each fragment of understanding ignited a flicker of purpose within me. The artifact, the object Elias had sacrificed so much to protect, became more than a mysterious device. I discovered it was a vessel of immense power, capable of deciphering enemy codes, predicting their moves before they made them. It was intelligence incarnate, a silent guardian that could shift the tide of this terrible war. But wielding such a force was not without its perils. I could feel the weight of unseen eyes, the constant threat that someone, somewhere, was watching me, Nazi agents, perhaps, or worse. I had to be vigilant, always aware, always on the edge of discovery. One evening, as I tucked Elias's diary into a hidden compartment beneath my mattress, I caught a flicker of movement outside my window, a shadow lingering just beyond the faint glow of the street lamp. My heart pounded as I pressed my hand against the glass, trying to see more, to understand if I had been seen. The figure moved cautiously, then disappeared into the darkness. For a moment, I was caught between relief and dread. Was it a friend, an enemy, or merely a stray passing by? I didn't know. But I knew one thing: I couldn't afford to lower my guard. Every step I took, every secret I uncovered, brought me closer to danger, yet also closer to the truth I sought. Despite the loneliness that hovered like a specter in my mind, I felt a growing strength, born from the memories of Elias's sacrifices and the knowledge he had left behind. With each passing day, I learned to trust myself more, to rely on my instincts, to listen to that quiet voice within that urged me onward. There were moments when despair threatened to drown me, when the weight of grief pressed so heavily I thought I might break. But I remembered Elias's words, his hope, how he believed that, even in the darkest times, the smallest spark of light could ignite a new beginning. My resolve hardened as I continued this secret life, knowing that the path I walked was fraught with peril. Yet, I also knew that my purpose was clear. I had to protect the artifact, to understand its true power, and to carry forward Elias's legacy in the only way I could. Every fragment of knowledge, every coded message deciphered, was a step toward reclaiming some sense of hope amid the shadows. And in the quiet moments, when the city's hum softened into a whisper, I would close my eyes and hold Elias's diary close, feeling his presence like a faint heartbeat that kept me moving forward, even when all else seemed lost. This was my silence, my defiance, my quiet rebellion against the darkness that threatened to swallow us all. And as long as I remembered Elias, as long as I kept faith in the fragile hope that someday I might turn this pain into a shield, then I knew I could endure, I could learn, and perhaps, in time, I could forge a new path from the ashes of yesterday. They said, "You're too fragile to work anymore." I remember how those words felt like a weight pressing down on my chest, a reminder of everything I had lost, everything I had sacrificed. But that very morning, fueled by a quiet determination that had never truly left me, I opened my own little business, something simple, yet meaningful. I found my purpose not in grand battles or secret missions, but in serving my community, in restoring a sense of normalcy that had been robbed from so many during those dark years. In the quiet hours of the day, I would sit in my shop, the artifact nestled carefully inside a small music box I kept close. Its delicate surface shimmered softly in the lamplight, a silent testament to Elias's love and the sacrifices we had both made. That artifact, once a source of danger and secrecy, had become something more, an emblem of resilience, of hope smuggled through coded messages, of lives saved by whispered secrets in the dead of night. Every time I transmitted vital intelligence, I felt Elias's presence guiding my hand, whispering encouragement in moments of doubt. The war, with all its chaos and sorrow, finally drew to a close. I remember the day the announcement came, the air thick with relief yet tinged with a bittersweet ache. Victory was ours, yes, but it had come at a cost, so many lives lost, so many sacrifices made in silence. I felt a mixture of exhaustion and pride, knowing that the artifact had played its part in frustrating enemy plans, disrupting their strategies, and turning the tide of battles. It had been a shield, a sword, a whisper in the shadows that helped tilt the balance toward our side. In those quiet moments after the war, I often found myself gazing at the artifact, now carefully stored in its music box, its presence a reminder of Elias's love and the unbreakable bond we shared. Over time, I saw it evolve from a symbol of peril into a cherished relic, something sacred, safeguarded not just by its power but by the love that had forged it. I realized that the true strength wasn't in the artifact itself, but in what it represented: hope, sacrifice, the enduring connection between Elias and me. It became a quiet talisman, a source of comfort as I navigated the new life that awaited beyond the conflict. As the years went on, I chose to leave behind the shadows and the secretive life I had led, seeking instead a place where I could nurture the gentle, everyday joys. I returned to Willow Creek, the town of my childhood, where the air was thick with familiar scents of blooming earth and the sound of children's laughter drifting from the streets. I dedicated myself to helping others, listening to their stories, offering kindness and understanding where fear once dwelled. I found peace in simple acts, tending a garden, sharing a warm meal, guiding a young girl's curious hands as she learned to read. In these small moments, I discovered that healing wasn't just for others, but also for myself, a gentle process of weaving my past into a tapestry of serenity. The artifact, now carefully kept in a music box, became more than a relic of wartime heroism. It was a symbol of love's endurance, a silent witness to the sacrifices Elias and I made. Its presence reminded me that even in the darkest times, love and hope could find a way to survive hidden, waiting to be uncovered again. Every day, I would wind the music box gently, listening to the faint melody that seemed to carry Elias's spirit, whispering reassurance that the fight was over and that peace had finally settled over our lives. Over the years, I grew into the figure everyone in Willow Creek knew as Grandma Aurora, wise and serene, with a gentle smile and eyes that held 1,000 stories. I became a keeper of memories, a guardian of love's quiet victories. Children would gather around me at the fireplace, their small faces eager and curious. I told them stories, not of secret codes and dangerous missions, but of courage, kindness, and the importance of holding on to hope through every storm. I wanted them to know that strength isn't always loud or visible. Sometimes it's found in quiet acts, in gentle words, and in the unbreakable bonds of love. As I reflect now, with the benefit of years and the perspective only time can give, I realize how profoundly those days shaped me. The diary Elias kept, filled with symbols and coded messages, was more than a record of wartime intelligence. It was a testament to resilience, a map of love and sacrifice that guided me even when I didn't fully understand it. That artifact, once a symbol of danger, became a symbol of hope, something I treasured more with each passing day. It stands in my heart, a reminder of the love that sustained us and the courage that carried us through the darkness. And so, as I sit here, surrounded by familiar faces and peaceful sounds, I find comfort in knowing that the legacy of Elias and all those who fought and loved is woven into the fabric of this quiet life. The war may have ended, but the lessons it imparted of bravery, sacrifice, and enduring love continue to echo softly in every moment of peace I now cherish. The past is never truly gone. It lives on in the stories we tell, in the hearts we touch, and in the quiet strength of a grandmother's love. As I sit quietly, the faded pages of Aurora's diary resting softly in my hands, I realize that what I once saw merely as relics of a distant past now shimmer with a quiet, unyielding light. Each word, each trembling line, feels like a whisper of her soul, an echo of the woman who endured, loved, and sacrificed everything in silence. It's as if I've been given a window not just into her stories, but into the very fabric of her spirit, woven through years of hardship and hope, stitched with love that defied the chaos that once threatened to tear her apart. Growing up, I cherished the stories she told, fairy tales spun from the simplest truths, fables of bravery and kindness that danced softly in the candlelight. But now, with this delicate manuscript, they seem different. They're no longer just stories for bedtime. They are metaphors for the extraordinary courage she carried within her, courage that often went unnoticed, buried beneath the quiet grace of her presence. I see her in those words, not as a fragile woman resigned to her fate, but as a resilient soul who fought battles unseen, who found strength and hope when the world around her was trembling. This diary reveals layers I never knew existed. Each entry is like a gentle stroke painted in hues of vulnerability and tenacity, capturing moments when fear threatened to undo her but was met instead with unwavering resolve. Her sacrifices, her fears, her moments of doubt, they all shimmer beneath her words, but so do her unwavering love and unwavering belief that, even in darkness, there is a flicker of light. Now I understand that her quiet strength was her true legacy, more potent than any artifact or secret she guarded, more enduring than the silence that often veiled her. As I reflect on her life, I see her not just as the grandmother I knew, but as a woman who faced storms with a gentle resilience that shaped the very fabric of my existence. Her struggles mirror my own in ways I had never fully appreciated, times when I felt overwhelmed by my own fears, doubts, and setbacks. Yet, through her stories, I find a voice of reassurance, a reminder that even in the face of the greatest challenges, perseverance and hope can quietly carry us forward. Her life teaches me that strength isn't always loud or visible. Sometimes, it's a soft whisper in the heart that sustains us through the darkest nights. Holding this diary, I feel a profound sense of peace. It's as if her spirit, through these fragile pages, reaches across the years to speak directly to me, guiding me with her wisdom. I realized that her greatest gift was not the secrets she kept or the artifacts she protected, but the love she poured into every story, every moment of her life. Her resilience, her ability to find beauty amid hardship, and her unwavering hope are woven into the very fabric of her words, an inheritance more precious than any treasure. And yet, as I close the diary gently, I understand that her story is not just a chapter of the past. It's a living thread that continues to weave through my life and the lives of those who come after me. Her quiet courage, her unconditional love, and her unbreakable spirit remind me that we all carry within us stories worth sharing, stories that can inspire others, that can heal wounds invisible to the eye. We're all custodians of our histories, guardians of the silent strength that sustains us when words fail. In this moment, I feel a deep, almost sacred responsibility to honor her memory by living with the same quiet resilience she exemplified. Each act of kindness I perform, each challenge I face, becomes a tribute to her. Her story teaches me that true legacy isn't forged in grand gestures or dramatic triumphs, but in the everyday moments of hope, patience, and love. It's in the way we carry ourselves through life's storms, holding on to those small, unspoken truths that keep us grounded. As I sit here, surrounded by the warm glow of the evening light filtering through the window, I feel a gentle warmth settle in my chest. Aurora's life, her sacrifices, her stories, these are no longer distant echoes, but a part of who I am. They remind me that even in the quietest moments, our lives can be filled with profound meaning. And in honoring her, I find a gentle reassurance that the stories we leave behind, no matter how small or hidden, have the power to shape the world in ways we may never fully see. So, I will keep her diary close, not just as a relic of the past, but as a guiding light for my own days. For her story, our story, is woven into the endless tapestry of love, courage, and hope that defines us all. And in this knowledge, I find peace. A peace rooted in gratitude and a renewed understanding that the greatest legacies are born from the quiet strength of those who love us, who teach us that even the most fragile among us can carry worlds within. As we close the chapter on Grandma Aurora's story, I want you to hold on to the quiet strength that she embodied, the kind of resilience that whispers softly but echoes loudly through the ages. Her life was a testament to the power of love and hope, even when faced with the darkest shadows. She sacrificed so much out of devotion, carrying her burdens silently, yet never allowing them to diminish her spirit. Instead, her sacrifices became the foundation of her unshakable resolve, a reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of courage are those hidden within the quiet corners of our hearts. Aurora's journey was not marked by grand declarations or heroic feats shouted from the rooftops. No, hers was a life lived in the small, meaningful moments, her gentle smile that comforted a grieving neighbor, her unwavering faith in the goodness of others, and the stories she kept secret, stories of love, loss, and hope that she passed down in her silent, enduring way. Her story reminds us that strength does not always roar. Often it whispers softly, waiting patiently for us to listen closely and find it within ourselves. If Aurora's story touched your heart, it means her message has found a home in yours. That right there is the true power of stories. They connect us across time and space, weaving threads of shared humanity that bind us in understanding and compassion. Her legacy is not just in the relic of her diary or the memories she left behind, but in the way her courage continues to inspire us to face our own struggles with grace and quiet hope. Her life teaches us that, even in the smallest acts of kindness, there lies a profound strength, an enduring reminder that love, perseverance, and hope are the most formidable forces we possess. As you reflect on her story, I invite you to think about your own life. What silent battles do you face? What stories are hidden deep within your heart, waiting for the right moment to emerge? Perhaps, like Aurora, you carry a secret, a hope, a dream, or a love so precious that it sustains you through the hardest times. Think about the stories you wish to tell, the legacy you want to leave behind. Every life has its quiet victories, its moments of resilience that, when shared, can light the way for others. And maybe, just maybe, your story might inspire someone else to find their strength, even in the smallest, most ordinary moments. I hope Aurora's journey has touched you deeply, stirring a sense of warmth and reflection. Her life was a testament to the silent, steady strength that resides within each of us, a strength that often goes unnoticed, yet shapes us into the resilient beings we are. Remember her story, cherish the lessons she shared in her quiet way, and carry those lessons forward. Let her hope remind you that, no matter how difficult life may seem, love and perseverance can illuminate even the darkest paths. Now, I want to ask you something from my heart. What secret do you believe Grandma Aurora held closest to her heart? Was it her unwavering love for Elias? Her hope for a peaceful life after the war? Or perhaps the quiet faith that one day, her sacrifices would help others find their own light? Whatever it may be, I encourage you to reflect on that secret, to hold it close, and to honor it in your own way. Because, in the end, it's these precious, hidden truths that give our lives meaning and connect us across generations. Thank you for sharing in Aurora's story today. If her journey has touched your soul, please consider leaving a like. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Subscribe to our channel to hear more heartfelt tales that remind us of the enduring strength of the human spirit. And I invite you to share your thoughts below. What part of Aurora's story resonated most with you? What secret, hope, or love are you carrying in your own heart? Let's create a space where stories like hers can continue to inspire, uplift, and remind us all that, even in the quietest moments, there lives a profound power to change the world.